October 18th, 1965, 11:43 p.m. A CH-34 helicopter lifts off from a jungle clearing in the central highlands of Vietnam. Inside, 4 men. One of them is 46 years old. Lean, quiet, the kind of still that only comes from having been shot at so many times that the fear burned itself out years ago. His name tag says Thorne. That is not his real name. His real name is Lauri Törni. And in the last 26 years, 3 of the most powerful governments on Earth have each tried, in their own way, to erase him. Finland declared him a traitor, then gave him their highest military honor. Germany called him a volunteer, then lost the war he fought for them. America called him a war criminal, then made him a citizen, then gave him a Green Beret, then sent him back into a jungle at midnight on a mission so classified that 60 years later, the full file is still sealed. The helicopter disappears into low cloud over the mountains. Radio contact is lost at 11:51 p.m. Lauri Törni is never seen alive again. But here is what they never tell you. The story doesn't end on that mountainside. It ends 34 years later when a team of archaeologists brushing mud from a Vietnamese hillside find a dog tag, a cracked wristwatch, and the wreckage of a helicopter that the United States government had been quietly hoping would never be found. Because finding Lauri Törni meant answering a question that 3 countries had spent decades trying to avoid. Who exactly was this man? And which of us do we bury him as? Viipuri, Finland, 1919. The city smells of pine resin and salt water. Fishing boats creak against the harbor dock in the gray Baltic morning. Seagulls cut through fog so thick you can press it between your fingers. Lauri Allen Törni is born on May 28th into a family that understands what it means to build something from nothing. His father, a ship captain, reads the sea the way other men read books. By feel, by instinct, by the accumulated knowledge of 1,000 crossings. His grandfather was a soldier. The bloodline runs straight through men who do not flinch when the wind turns hostile. Lauri is not big. In photographs from his boyhood, he looks unremarkable. Dark hair, level eyes, a slight frame that gives nothing away. Teachers describe him as focused, disciplined, not loud, present. The boy who watches before he speaks. The boy who, when he speaks, means exactly what he says. But underneath that stillness, something is running. Not ambition, not anger. Something older. A refusal. Wordless, almost biological, to be smaller than the moment requires. You only discover what that refusal is made of in one place. In 1939, that place finds Lauri Törni before he can find it. ECT-3, Thich Cultio Adventure. November 30th, 1939, 6:15 a.m. Lauri is 20 years old and standing at a military outpost on the Karelian Isthmus when the Soviet artillery opens up. The sound is not like anything a civilian has words for. It is not a bang. It is a pressure. A change in the physical world, the air itself turning briefly solid, the ground beneath your boots becoming something unreliable. The smell of cordite drifts across frozen fields, sharp and chemical, and beneath it, underneath the smoke and the cold, the iron scent of earth that has been ripped open. 750,000 Soviet soldiers are on the other side of that artillery. Finland has 300,000. Most of them are farmers, loggers, men who have never fired at anything that fired back. The math is not a war. The math is an execution. Stalin's generals give themselves 11 days to finish it. What they do not account for, what no one in Moscow accounts for, is this. Every Finnish soldier standing in those frozen trees has been walking through this exact forest since he was 4 years old. He knows which ice holds and which gives way. He knows how sound travels differently through birch than through pine. He knows that a column of Soviet tanks moving at night kicks up a snow cloud visible 3 kilometers away, and that a Finnish soldier on skis moving alone makes almost no sound at all. Lauri Törni is not a large man. He is not a loud man. He does not give speeches. He straps on his skis, checks his rifle, and disappears into the trees. The Soviets call it the Winter War. The Finns call it selvadaminen, survival. Törni's unit operates behind Soviet lines, deep behind, for days at a time with no resupply, no backup, no margin. Moving at night through cold so absolute it stiffens the rifle bolt and turns the breath into a white signal flare visible for 100 meters. Sleeping in the snow for a few hours, never more. Eating from pockets. Moving again before dawn. He learns something in those forests that no military academy teaches. Violence has a rhythm, and the man who controls the rhythm controls the fight. Not the man with the most weapons, not the man with the most soldiers. The man who decides when the rhythm changes, who breaks the pattern, who acts when the enemy is still reacting. that man wins. He brings his unit home every time. Not everyone comes home. He carries their names. He does not speak of it. But the men who serve alongside him see it in the way he moves through a firefight, always placing himself between his unit and the worst of the incoming fire. Always the last one out. The Winter War ends in March 1940. Finland signs the Moscow Peace Treaty, gives up territory, bleeds. Lauri Törni comes home with the Mannerheim Cross, Finland's highest military decoration. He is 20 years old. Pause. He should be done. Any rational man would be done. But the Soviet army that just took a piece of Finland is still sitting on the border, still there, still watching. And Lauri Törni is not built for the version of peace that requires him to pretend otherwise. June 1941. Germany invades the Soviet Union. Finland, seeing the chance to reclaim the land it lost, enters the conflict alongside them. Not as an ally of the Reich, Finnish historians are careful about this, but as a nation fighting the same enemy for its own reasons. The continuation war begins. Törni commands a special detachment, long-range reconnaissance, the kind of work that does not appear in official reports. Deep penetrations behind Soviet lines, disrupting supply routes, destroying communication nodes, vanishing before the response arrives. His unit operates with a freedom of movement that conventional military doctrine has no category for. They are ghosts in the birchwood. They smell of wood smoke and cold air and spent brass. They move at night, eat when they can, sleep in shallow holes scraped from frozen ground. They are gone for weeks at a time, then they reappear from the tree line with information that saves entire divisions, and nobody asks how they got it. Finland makes a separate peace with the Soviet Union in 1944. The war is over. Lauri Törni refuses to accept it. Not because he is irrational, because he has watched the Soviet Union take territory, absorb it, and continue watching. And the peace that Finland signed contains terms that will slowly strangle everything he has bled for. He does something that will define the rest of his life, and end his first one. He volunteers for a German Waffen-SS unit. Not for ideology, not for the swastika. For the only reason Lauri Törni has ever done anything, to keep fighting the Soviets. To keep doing the one thing he knows how to do with the only weapon he has left. Beat. The Allies win the war. And in Helsinki, a Finnish military court opens the file of Captain Lauri Törni. The charge? Treason. 6 years. He sits in a cell in Cernainen prison and stares at the ceiling and listens to the sound of a country trying to figure out what to do with a man who fought too hard for too long and refused to stop when they told him to. In 1946, the cell door opens. Not because his sentence is up, but because Törni has simply stopped accepting that it applies to him. He escapes. Makes it to Sweden. Gets caught. Sent back. Tried again. He escapes again. This time he gets further. The hold of a fishing boat somewhere in the North Atlantic. The smell is diesel fuel, salt rust, and fish that have been dead for days. The boat pitches in heavy swell. In the hold, wedged between equipment crates with false documents in his coat pocket, Lauri Törni crosses an ocean toward a continent that has never heard his name. He arrives in Venezuela with nothing except his skills, and those, it turns out, are worth considerably more than any document. By 1954, he is in the United States, illegally, quietly, making contact through Finnish-American veterans who know what the Mannerheim Cross means. Men who speak of him the way soldiers speak of anyone who has done what most men only imagine, with a specific, restrained reverence that is more honest than any medal. The United States Army is building something new. Special forces, small teams, unconventional warfare, long-range operations deep in hostile territory, training local fighters, disrupting enemy logistics, disappearing before the response arrives. They need instructors. They need men who have actually done it. Not men who have read about it in Fort Bragg manuals, but men who spent weeks behind Soviet lines in -40 cold and brought their units home. There is one such man in New York, living illegally, very willing to be useful. The Army reads his file. The treason conviction. The SS service. The to-prison escapes. Then they read the combat record. In 1957, a private bill passes through the United States Congress granting Lauri Törni American citizenship under a provision reserved for individuals of exceptional value to national security. He enlists as a private, the lowest rank in the Army. A man who commanded Finnish Special Forces at 20 starts over at the bottom without complaint, without bitterness, without a single word about what he gave up to sit in that intake chair. He takes a new name. Slow, deliberate pause. Lauri Torni, American sounding. Clean. The name of a man born in Ohio, not in a Finnish port city in the year the world was still bleeding from the last Great War. But you cannot rename what a man has become. The 10th Special Forces Group in Bad Tels, Germany discovers this inside 6 months. Thorne, Törni, is not the student. He is the professor. Training men half his age in techniques he developed in forests no American has ever set foot in. Cold weather survival, long-range navigation without technology. The specific psychological discipline of operating for weeks behind enemy lines without support, without sleep, without any reasonable expectation of rescue. The young Green Berets call him the old man, not dismissively, with the particular tone that soldiers use for someone who has seen things they haven't seen yet, and survived things they hope they never have to. Vietnam, 1962. The jungle is nothing like Finland. The heat is a living thing. Wet, pressing, insistent, the kind that lays on your chest and makes every breath a small argument. The trees are different. The mud is different. The insects are different. Even the darkness is different. Thicker, more complete, broken by sounds that have no European equivalent. Everything else is exactly the same. Törni runs missions into Laos, into Cambodia, along supply routes that official American policy insists do not exist. He works with Vietnamese Special Operations Forces, training them the way the Karelian Forest trained him, with the assumption that when the stakes are real, there are no second chances. He is 43 years old. He writes letters home to his wife, Tammy, in Florida. He writes about the heat. He writes, carefully, about the men he works with. He says they remind him of the Finns. Tough, clever, fighting for something the people giving orders on both sides don't fully understand. He volunteers for a second tour. His commanding officers suggest, gently, that a man his age might consider something stateside. Lauri Torni declines. A beat. October 18th, 1965, 11:43 p.m. The helicopter lifts off. Radio contact is lost at 11:51. The U.S. Army lists him missing in action. Not dead. Missing. Because Lauri Törni had been missing before. He had been declared dead before. He had a habit, almost a talent, for surviving things that should not be survivable. For 34 years, Tammy Thorne waits. In Finland, old men who walked with him through the Winter War hold quiet ceremonies on his birthday. They do not speak of him in the past tense. Finnish soldiers don't. In America, Bad Tels men and Vietnam men do the same. Then, in 1999, a joint American-Vietnamese archaeological team working a mountainside in Quang Nam province brushes mud from a piece of metal. A dog tag. A cracked wristwatch. The wreckage of a CH-34. DNA analysis confirms it. Lauri Thorne. Lauri Törni. On June 26, 2003, he is buried at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. Section 7A, the section for Special Forces soldiers. The Finnish government sends a representative. The American Special Forces community turns out in force. Old men in berets and young men in berets and all the men between who knew his name before they knew his story. Finland places a Mannerheim cross on the casket. America places a green beret on top of it. Long silence. 3 countries spent decades trying to decide what to do with Lauri Törni. In the end, he lay under both of their symbols on a green hill in Virginia under a white stone that said his name and nothing else. Not traitor. Not war criminal. Not ghost. Just a soldier. Finally, impossibly at rest. We build monuments to men we understand. Lauri Törni defied understanding. He was a Finnish hero and a Finnish traitor. A German volunteer and an American legend. A man who crossed an ocean in a fishing boat holed to serve a country that had once hunted him. A man who died with the wrong name in the wrong jungle for reasons the file still won't fully explain. History doesn't know what shelf to put him on. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the men who matter most are precisely the ones that don't fit the frame, the ones whose loyalty ran deeper than any flag, whose refusal to quit outlasted every institution that tried to contain them. They are the ones who keep fighting when the war is officially over. They are the ones who cross the ocean when every door is closed. They are the ones who, at 46 years old, climb into a helicopter at midnight because the mission isn't finished yet. History forgot Lauri Törni. The jungle kept him for 34 years. And Arlington holds him now, under 2 flags that once called him an enemy, as if the ground itself finally decided to give him what 3 countries never could. a place that was simply permanently his.